The day had started like any other for Emma Harper, a 24-year-old young woman who sold chocolates at the intersection of one of Chicago's busiest avenues. Ever since losing her parents in a car accident years ago, she had been living a challenging routine, balancing the struggle for survival with an unexpected pregnancy. Her physical disability, a result of being hit by a car in her teenage years, made everything more difficult, but Emma was not the type to give up. Her shy smile was her main weapon to attract customers on that grey day. Her wheelchair, worn by time, creaked every time she moved between cars, balancing the tray of wrapped chocolates. The traffic light flashed, signaling that crossing was safe for a few seconds, but when she tried to move forward, one of the wheelchair's wheels got stuck in a crack in the asphalt. At the same time, on the other side of the avenue, Nathan Cole, a 30-year-old businessman, was hurriedly adjusting the controls of his luxury electric car. He was late for a crucial meeting with international investors. His phone kept vibrating in its holder with urgent messages from his assistant. Ignoring the flow of traffic, Nathan glanced away for a moment to check an email. The impact was devastating. The metallic sound of the crash echoed like thunder. Nathan slammed on the brakes, but it was already too late. Emma was thrown to the side, her tray shattering, scattering chocolates and shards of glass across the asphalt. Drivers around them stopped, stunned, while some people got out of their cars to help. Nathan got out of his vehicle in a panic, his heart racing and his hands trembling. When he approached Emma, he saw blood running down her forehead. She was unconscious, her face pale and her body motionless in the broken wheelchair. Her hand rested on her belly, instinctively protecting the baby. "Oh my God, what have I done?" Nathan murmured, kneeling beside her. "Someone call an ambulance," shouted a man from the crowd. As the chaos unfolded, Nathan tried talking to Emma, but she didn't respond. The distant sound of sirens filled the air, and he held her hand, feeling the guilt settle in like a crushing weight. At the hospital, Emma was immediately taken to the emergency room. The doctors were focused on stabilizing her, assessing her injuries, and checking on the baby. Nathan couldn't leave the scene. He stayed in the waiting room, pacing back and forth, his eyes fixed on the floor, his mind consumed by torturous thoughts. Hours later, Dr. Alan Mitchell, a man with a serious expression, appeared in the hallway. Nathan rushed up to him. "How is she? And the baby?" The patient suffered a head injury and several abrasions. "We're concerned about the baby's health, but we still don't know the exact condition. She has gone into a coma, and the next few days will be critical." Nathan felt a lump in his throat. He didn't know Emma, but the guilt was eating him alive. He thought of his comfortable life and the privilege that had kept him away from situations like this. "Does she have any family? Someone who can come here?" The doctor shook his head. "We couldn't reach anyone. She's alone." Those words echoed like a sentence. Nathan realized that, somehow, it was his responsibility to be there. He had caused this disaster. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Emma remained in a coma, connected to machines that monitored her vital signs. Nathan visited her room daily, watching her in silence, trying to understand how his meticulously planned life had taken such an abrupt turn. On the third night, sitting in an uncomfortable chair beside Emma's bed, Nathan broke down. "I don't know why I'm here. Maybe it's because I feel responsible. Maybe it's because I've never had the courage to face the things that really matter." He looked at her belly, now more visible under the sheets. "Your child. I promise I'll do everything I can to make this right." The doctors did everything they could to stabilize Emma, but Nathan knew it would be a long road. He couldn't stop imagining what her life had been like before that fateful day. Small details in the room, a worn bracelet, a heart-shaped keychain in her bag, revealed fragments of a young woman who had faced hardships long before he appeared in her life like a walking disaster. Nathan began dedicating part of his days to organizing help for Emma. He hired lawyers to handle any medical expenses and started looking into her past. Who was this woman selling chocolates in the middle of the city, carrying so much weight alone? One day, as he watched the monitor beside her bed, a nurse commented casually, "It's rare to see someone spend so much time beside a patient like this. Are you family?" Nathan hesitated. Should he tell the truth? Not exactly. But, "I feel like I need to be here." The nurse smiled as if she understood. "That's more than many would do." Nathan didn't respond. He knew that what he had done so far would never be enough to erase what he had caused. The hospital seemed like a bubble where time passed more slowly. Hours dragged on, filled with the rhythmic sound of machines and the distant echo of footsteps in the hallways. Nathan, sitting in one of the plastic chairs in the room, watched Emma. Her face, pale under the fluorescent light, remained still, but her hand sometimes trembled slightly, as if fighting an invisible battle. Every day, Nathan felt the guilt growing, becoming a shadow that followed him even at home. When he finally gave in to exhaustion and returned to his luxurious apartment, he couldn't sleep. The incident haunted his thoughts, and Emma's face appeared every time he closed his eyes. He knew it wasn't just about the accident. It was something deeper, something he couldn't explain. A week passed, and the unexpected happened. Nathan was in the hospital hallway, discussing with the doctor about the cost of a piece of equipment Emma would need. The doctor's cold and pragmatic tone irritated Nathan. "It doesn't matter the price, just authorize it." "I'll take care of it," Nathan said, crossing his arms. "I understand your concern, Mr. Cole, but I must say that there are still no guarantees about her recovery." Nathan interrupted him, annoyed. "Guarantees? Who needs guarantees? She's still alive, and as long as she is, I'll do whatever it takes." Before the doctor could respond, a nurse hurried over to them. "Dr. Mitchell, the patient in room 212 is starting to open her eyes." Nathan felt a chill down his spine. He didn't need to ask. He knew it was Emma. He followed the doctor to the room, his heart pounding. When they entered, they found Emma blinking slowly, trying to adjust to the light. Her eyes, a pale blue, moved around the room, confused. Nathan seemed frozen, unable to react. "Welcome back, Emma," the doctor said calmly as he checked the machines. She tried to speak, but her lips were dry and cracked. The doctor signaled for her to wait. "Don't force it. You're recovering from a coma." Emma looked around, her gaze lost. Finally, her eyes settled on Nathan, who stood motionless, watching her with a mix of relief and guilt. "Hi. You are." Her voice was low, almost a whisper. Nathan opened his mouth, but no words came out. He felt the weight of the moment, each second dragging as he thought of what to say. I'm... He hesitated, then finished, "I'm here to help." Emma frowned, trying to remember something. When she tried to move her hands, she realized they were weak. Instinctively, she tried to lift her body, but stopped when she felt a sharp pain in her waist. She looked down and saw her rounded belly. "My baby! Is my baby okay?" "Yes, the baby is fine," Nathan replied quickly, his voice steadier this time. The doctor confirmed, smiling, "We've been monitoring your pregnancy. Everything is under control, but you need to rest." Emma nodded, but still seemed confused. "And me? Who am I?" Nathan and the doctor exchanged glances. The nurse standing by the door took a step back, as if she knew this moment would be delicate. "Your name is Emma Harper," the doctor said. "You were in an accident, and you're recovering." She blinked several times, as if processing the information. "I don't remember anything." Her voice trembled, filled with anguish. Nathan finally found the courage to approach her. He sat in the chair beside her bed and held her hand, hesitant. "It's okay. Don't worry about that now. The important thing is that you're here." Emma looked at him with eyes full of doubt, but also something that seemed like hope. "You must be the father of my baby. Are we married? Do we live together? I don't know. I'm so confused. I don't remember you now, love, but this will pass. The important thing is that our baby is okay." The words hit him like a punch to the stomach. Nathan was paralyzed, his heart pounding. Before he could finish, the monitor beside the bed started beeping. The doctor gestured for Nathan to stop. "Let's take it easy. You need to rest. Don't force your memory now." Emma started breathing quickly, and Nathan noticed her blood pressure rising. He watched the doctor adjust the equipment and decided to do something impulsive. "Yes, Emma. It's me. Everything is okay now." The words came out before he could think of the consequences. The monitor stabilized, and Emma seemed to relax. "I knew you would be here," she murmured before closing her eyes, falling asleep again. Almost everyone on the team was moved to tears by what he said. They knew deep down he was doing everything he could to help her survive, even if out of remorse. Everyone except the doctor, who gave Nathan a severe look as soon as they left the room. "That was reckless. You saw how she reacted. I just wanted her to calm down. And what do you plan to do now? Keep up with this lie?" Nathan ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. "I don't know. I just know I don't want her to suffer anymore." In the days that followed, Nathan found himself in an increasingly complicated situation. Emma, still fragile, assumed he was her husband and the baby's father. The nurses began treating him as part of the family, and he didn't know how to correct the mistake without causing more harm. One morning, while adjusting her pillow, Emma looked at him and asked, "Did you feel our baby kick for the first time?" Nathan swallowed hard. "No, but I'll be here from now on." The smile she gave disarmed him. For the first time, he realized it wasn't just guilt that kept him there. Something about this woman awakened a part of him that had been dormant for years. But the situation spiraled out of control when, a week later, the doctor came with urgent news. "We need to perform an emergency C-section. There are signs of complications, and we can't take any risks." Nathan looked at Emma, who held his hand tightly. "I'm scared," she said, her eyes filled with tears. He squeezed her hand and replied firmly, "Don't worry. I'll be here." Emma looked at him, full of trust, and whispered, "Promise you won't leave me." Nathan felt the weight of that promise. "I promise." And at that moment, as the doctors prepared to take her to surgery, Nathan realized his life would never be the same. The waiting room was a place of raw nerves, a microcosm of despair and hope. Nathan was there, alone, his hands clasped as if he were praying, something he hadn't done in years. He could barely hear the footsteps of nurses around him or the whispers of other families waiting for news. All that mattered was beyond that metal door leading to the surgical unit. Inside the room, Emma was surrounded by doctors and nurses. The machines beeped, and voices exchanged rapid instructions. Despite the pressure of the moment, the young woman kept her eyes on Nathan until the last moment, just before being sedated. He had waved at her, trying to convey a confidence he didn't feel. "Please be okay," he murmured, his voice fading into the void. The surgery lasted hours. Nathan lost track of time as he walked the hallway, becoming more desperate with each turn. The sound of his footsteps echoed in his mind, mixed with the crushing weight of his guilt. He didn't know what he felt for Emma. It was more than remorse. It was something that grew silently with every moment spent by her side. Finally, Dr. Mitchell emerged from the room, still wearing his blood-stained coat. Nathan ran to him, his heart nearly stopping. "How is she? And the baby?" The doctor, always serious, gave a small smile. "The baby is fine. It's a girl." Nathan felt a momentary relief, but the doctor's hesitant tone made him ask, "And Emma?" The smile faded. "She lost a lot of blood, but is stable for now. She'll need a lot of care in the coming weeks." Nathan nodded, his chest tight. "Can I see them?" "Emma is still under the effects of the anesthesia. But you can see the baby." Nathan followed the doctor to the nursery, where dozens of newborns lay in rows. When the doctor pointed to one, Nathan approached slowly, his heart racing. The baby was tiny, with pink skin and thin hair. She was wrapped in a white blanket, with a bracelet on her wrist that simply read, "Baby Harper." Looking at her, Nathan felt something change inside him. It was as if this child was a reminder of everything he owed her mother. He reached out, hesitant, touching the glass. "What do I do now?" he murmured to himself. Hours later, Emma finally woke up. The hospital room was illuminated by a ray of sunlight streaming through the window, and the soft sound of a heart monitor filled the space. Nathan was by her side, holding a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Emma opened her eyes slowly, blinking several times until her vision cleared. She tried to move, but the pain made her stop. "Don't move," Nathan said quickly, leaning toward her. "You're recovering from surgery." She looked at him, her eyes tired but with a glimmer of recognition. "The baby." Nathan smiled, something he hadn't done in days. "It's a girl. She's fine." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes. She tried to speak but only sobbed, overwhelmed. Nathan held her hand. "You were amazing. She's alive because you fought." Emma squeezed his hand, seeking strength. "I want to see her." Nathan hesitated. "I'll talk to the nurses. But first, you need to rest a little." Emma agreed, closing her eyes for a moment. Nathan watched her, noticing how fragile she seemed, but also incredibly strong. When they finally brought the baby to the room, Emma was propped up on pillows, still pale but with eyes shining with expectation. The nurse placed the baby in her arms, helping to adjust her to the right position. Emma looked at the baby with a mix of amazement and love. "She's so tiny," she murmured. Nathan was standing by the bed, watching. Emma looked up at him, smiling. "Our baby, Nathan." Those words struck him like lightning. "Our baby." He wanted to correct her, to explain that it wasn't true, but the moment seemed too sacred to interrupt. He simply nodded, smiling back. "She's perfect." Emma looked at the baby again, gently stroking her cheek with trembling fingers. "I want to call her Grace. Is that okay?" Nathan didn't know why, but that choice felt right. Grace is a beautiful name. In the days that followed, Emma began to recover slowly. Nathan stayed by her side, helping her with everything. He had decided he would take her to his home when she was discharged. He couldn't leave her alone in a small, unsuitable apartment, especially now with a newborn. One afternoon, while helping Emma eat, she looked at him with a shy smile. "You're amazing, Nathan. I don't know what I'd do without you." He looked away, feeling the guilt stir inside him. "I'm just doing what's right." She frowned. "It's not just that. You're here, with me, with Grace. That means a lot." Nathan took a deep breath, fighting the urge to tell her everything. He knew he needed to tell the truth, but every time he thought about how it might affect her, He backed off. Finally, the day of discharge arrived. Emma was in her wheelchair, with Grace sleeping in a small, adapted bassinet. Nathan was beside her, making sure everything was ready. "Where are we going?" Emma asked, looking at him curiously. "To my place." She looked surprised. "Your house?" "Yes. You need a proper place to recover, and my apartment has enough space for you and Grace." Emma hesitated. "I don't understand." "In due time, you will understand all the details," Nathan interrupted firmly. "Trust me for now. Just know that it will be the best place for both of you." She finally nodded, touched. "All right, Nathan." That night, while Emma slept in a room Nathan had prepared for her, he stayed in the living room, staring out the window. Chicago sparkled as always, but he felt that his life had changed forever. He didn't know what the future would hold, but one thing was certain. He would do everything to make sure Emma and Grace had what they needed. Nathan Cole's apartment was a modern architectural masterpiece in the heart of Chicago. Spacious areas, glass walls offering a panoramic view of the city, and minimalist furniture gave the place a sophisticated but impersonal atmosphere. It was more a reflection of who Nathan had been until that moment, a man focused on work, distant from any kind of genuine emotional involvement. But now, that space was transforming. Cribs, toys, baby clothes, and medical accessories began to occupy the corners, turning the sterile environment into something more alive. To Emma, who had lived her life in modest homes, the apartment seemed like a distant dream. She rolled her wheelchair carefully through the wide hallways, her eyes taking in every detail in amazement. "This place is huge, Nathan. Do you live here alone?" she asked while adjusting Grace in her lap. Nathan, organizing a pile of diapers on an improvised changing table, replied without looking, "I've always lived alone. I work too much to think about sharing the space with someone." Emma smiled softly. "Well, I guess we're not alone anymore." Nathan looked up, catching the hopeful tone in her voice. He knew that the lie he was living was like a house of cards about to collapse, but every time he saw Emma's smile or Grace's face, he postponed the moment of telling the truth. The first few days were a mixture of learning and adaptation. Emma, though still weak, insisted on caring for Grace. Even with the limitations of the wheelchair, she managed to change diapers and bottle feed with surprising skill. One afternoon, while Emma was adjusting Grace in her small crib, Nathan approached with a plate of food. "You need to eat," he said, placing the plate on the table next to her. Emma looked up, exhausted, but smiled. "I don't know how you handle all this. Work, taking care of me and Grace. It's too much for one person." Nathan shrugged, sitting on the arm of the couch. "It's not that much. Besides, you're doing your part." She laughed lightly, but her laughter soon turned into a melancholy sigh. "I wish I could do more. It's not fair to leave it all to you." Nathan looked at her, sensing the vulnerability behind her words. "You're already doing a lot, Emma, and honestly, I think this is helping me." She frowned. "Helping how?" Nathan hesitated for a moment, but decided to open up a bit. "My life has always been about work. I never had something like this. Something real, you know? And somehow, being here with you and Grace makes everything feel different." Emma was silent, watching him closely. "You're more real than you think, Nathan." Those words caught him by surprise. He looked away, feeling the weight of his lie grow. As the weeks passed, the routine brought moments of unexpected closeness between Nathan and Emma. He began to realize that he wasn't just helping her out of guilt. He was falling in love with her. It was a feeling that scared him but also attracted him. One night, while he was working on his laptop in the living room, Emma appeared in the doorway, slowly pushing her wheelchair. "Can I come in?" Nathan looked at her, surprised. "Of course. What's wrong?" Emma entered, stopping beside the couch. "Grace is asleep, and I just wanted to talk a little." Nathan closed his laptop and turned to her. "About what?" Emma shrugged, playing with her hands in her lap. "About us. About all this." Nathan felt a tightening in his chest. "All this? Yes. I still can't remember who I was before the accident. But I know you're here with me, and that means a lot." Nathan didn't know what to say. He wanted to tell the truth, but Emma's expression was so full of trust that he couldn't. "I just want you to know that I'm here for you, Emma. For you and for Grace." She smiled, touched, and reached out to him. Nathan hesitated but took her hand. "Thank you, Nathan." With time, Emma began to form stronger bonds with Nathan. She watched him as he cared for Grace or helped her with daily tasks. To her, he was a silent hero, someone willing to sacrifice everything to protect her. But for Nathan, the internal struggle continued. He knew he was living a lie, and the fear of hurting Emma consumed him. One night, while Emma was asleep, Nathan sat in the living room with a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked at the city lights outside, feeling lonelier than ever. "What are you doing, Nathan?" he murmured to himself. He knew he needed to tell the truth, but he feared it would destroy everything. A week later, during a routine hospital checkup, Emma had a small breakdown upon seeing a stranger in the waiting room. It was just an ordinary man, but something about his face sent her into a panic. "Emma, what's wrong?" Nathan asked, holding her shoulders as she breathed heavily. "I don't know," she said, trembling. I saw a face. I think I know him." Nathan exchanged a worried look with the nurse, who ran to get the doctor. He knew this was a sign that her memory might be coming back. In the days that followed, Emma seemed more restless. She began to ask questions about the past, trying to fill in the blanks. "Nathan, how did we meet?" she asked one afternoon while feeding Grace. Nathan felt his heart race. "It was by chance." "By chance?" "Yes. Our lives crossed in a way I never expected." Emma smiled. "Then it was fate." Nathan tried to smile back, but the weight of the truth was suffocating him. He knew time was running out, that soon Emma would discover the truth, and he feared that when that happened, she would hate him forever. The routine at Nathan's house had become almost stable, but the balance was fragile, like a glass bridge over an abyss. Emma, increasingly comfortable, seemed to bloom amid caring for Grace and Nathan's constant company. But the shadow of her lost memories still lingered, and every time she tried to touch on the subject, Nathan would dodge or simplify it, which left her intrigued but not suspicious. One morning, as Emma adjusted her wheelchair to move to Grace's crib, she heard the intercom buzz. Nathan answered on speakerphone. "Mr. Cole, there's a man in the lobby saying he wants to speak with Mrs. Harper." He introduced himself as Brian Lewis. Nathan felt his blood run cold. His face paled, and his mind started to spin. "Don't let him up," Nathan said quickly. But before he could hang up, Emma interrupted. "Who is Brian Lewis?" Nathan looked at her, tension visible on his face. "No one important." "No one important?" "He came here looking for me," Emma insisted, her tone cautious. "It must be a mistake," Nathan replied, trying to sound convincing, but his voice was marked by haste. Emma narrowed her eyes, her suspicion growing. "Nathan, who is he?" Before he could answer, Grace started crying. Emma, clearly disturbed, moved to calm her daughter while Nathan grabbed the phone and asked the building security to remove the man from the lobby. Later that day, As Emma rested on the couch with Grace in her arms, Nathan sat beside her, trying to bring some lightness to the moment. "How are you feeling?" he asked, trying to gauge her emotions. Emma looked at him, serious. "Who was that man?" Nathan sighed. He knew he couldn't ignore the question forever, but the truth felt like a poison that could destroy everything they had built. I'm not sure. Maybe he's someone from your past. Someone from my past? Why didn't you tell me that before?" "Because I didn't think it was relevant." Emma frowned, clearly hurt. "Not relevant? My whole life before the accident is a black hole, Nathan. If someone came looking for me, of course it's relevant." Nathan didn't know what to say. He wanted to protect her, but every lie seemed to pull him deeper into a bottomless pit. "Emma, please, trust me. This man is not good company." "How do you know that?" Nathan hesitated again, but before he could answer, Grace's crying saved him from having to deal with an immediate response. In the following days, Emma seemed more distant. She still smiled at Nathan and accepted his help, but there was a shadow in her eyes, a restlessness he couldn't ignore. Finally, the bomb exploded. One afternoon, while Nathan was in the improvised office in the apartment, the intercom buzzed again. This time, Emma answered. "Mrs. Harper," asked the voice of the doorman. "Mr. Brian Lewis is here again and insists it's urgent." Emma took a deep breath. "Tell him to wait. I want to speak with him." Nathan appeared in the doorway, his face pale with worry. "What are you doing?" "I'm talking to him. I want to know who he is." Nathan rushed over to her, placing a hand on her wheelchair arm. "Emma, don't do this." She looked at him with a determination he rarely saw. "Why not? What are you hiding from me?" Nathan swallowed hard. He knew he was losing control of the situation. "I just want to protect you." "Protect me from what, Nathan?" Emma asked, her voice starting to rise. "I'm not a child. You can't decide what is or isn't important for me." Nathan looked at her, desperate, but before he could answer, she pressed the button to allow Brian in. Brian arrived at the apartment a few minutes later. He was a weary-looking man, with simple clothes and eyes that alternated between regret and calculation. Emma watched him carefully as he entered. Nathan stood by her side, like a protective shield. "Emma," Brian began, his voice trembling. "My God, you're alive." She frowned, confused. "You know me?" Brian nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "Yes. I'm the father of your baby." The impact of those words made the room seem to spin. Emma looked at Nathan, expecting some explanation, but he just lowered his head. "What are you saying?" Emma asked, her voice faltering. "We had a relationship. I didn't know what to do when I found out you were pregnant. I was scared and I left. But when I heard about the accident, I realized the mistake I had made. I want to make it right." Nathan interrupted, his tone firm. "And why are you only showing up now? After all this time?" Brian looked at him, a trace of irritation in his expression. "That's none of your business." Emma intervened, her voice sharp. "It is his business. Nathan was by my side when no one else was. Now you come out of nowhere saying you're the father of my daughter? How do you expect me to believe that?" Brian stepped forward, ignoring Nathan. "I know I messed up, but I want to be part of her life. I want to help you and our daughter." Emma looked at him, her eyes filling with tears. "I don't know who you are. I don't remember anything about you." "Then give me a chance to prove myself," Brian pleaded. Before Emma could respond, Nathan stepped in. "Emma, he doesn't deserve your trust. He abandoned you when you needed him most." Brian laughed mockingly. "And you? Who are you to talk about me?" Nathan remained silent, the weight of his guilt crushing him. Emma looked from one to the other, the confusion growing. "Is someone going to explain to me what's going on here?" Nathan sighed, his gaze meeting hers. "Emma, please, just trust me." But she didn't seem willing to hear any more empty promises. "I don't know who to trust, Nathan. And as far as I know, he could be telling the truth." The tension in the air was unbearable. Emma knew she needed answers, but everything around her seemed like a web of lies and secrets. After Brian left, Emma locked herself in her room with Grace, refusing to speak to Nathan. He knew the situation was slipping out of his control. The next day, Nathan decided to confront Brian. He found him in a nearby cafe, with an envelope full of money in his hand. "What do you really want, Brian?" Nathan asked, his voice low and dangerous. Brian smirked, taking the envelope without hesitation. "I just want what's fair." "Fair? You have no right to show up now. If you really cared, you would have been there from the beginning. And you? Are you the hero now?" Brian retorted. All this time lying to her. Nathan clenched his fists but took a deep breath. "Take the money and disappear. Never come back." Brian laughed but accepted the deal. When Nathan returned to the apartment, Emma confronted him. "Where have you been?" He hesitated but answered, "I took care of things with Brian. He won't be back." Emma looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. "You think you can control everything, don't you?" Nathan knew he had failed. "Emma, I just want to protect you." "Sometimes, Nathan, what I need isn't protection. It's the truth." The tension in Nathan's apartment was palpable. Emma was more distant, spending more time alone with Grace in the room he had carefully prepared for them. Since the confrontation with Brian, the invisible walls between Emma and Nathan had grown. He knew the truth was about to emerge, but with each day he postponed telling it, the chasm between them seemed to deepen. Emma also felt the weight of the silence. The absence of memories about her past made her question everything around her, but most of all, she questioned Nathan. He always seemed so present, so dedicated, but there was something he wasn't saying, something she saw in his eyes when he thought she wasn't looking. One afternoon, Emma was in the living room, holding Grace in her lap. The baby seemed distracted by the city lights coming through the large windows. Nathan entered with a tense expression, carrying a tray with tea and some cookies. He seemed anxious to break the silence. "You need to rest more, Emma," he said, placing the tray on the coffee table. Emma didn't look away from Grace. "I've rested enough at the hospital. What I need now are answers." Nathan felt the impact of her words. He sat down on the couch, rubbing his hands as if trying to dissipate the tension building up in his chest. "I know you want answers, Emma, but some things are complicated." Emma finally looked at him, her face serious. "Complicated? Nathan, everything in my life is complicated right now. I'm raising a daughter I barely know, in a place that's not mine, beside a man who—" She paused, swallowing hard. "Who what?" Nathan asked, his voice low. "Who seems to be hiding something from me." Nathan closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the truth that was about to come out. "Emma, I never wanted to lie to you. But you did." The silence between them was heavy. Grace started crying, as if she could sense the tension. Emma rocked her, but her eyes never left Nathan. "What are you hiding?" Nathan stood up, running his hands through his hair. He seemed torn between protecting Emma and freeing himself from the burden he carried. He began, but the sound of the intercom interrupted him. He answered quickly, as if seizing the opportunity to escape the conversation. "Mr. Cole, there's a delivery for Mrs. Harper," said the doorman. Emma frowned. "For me?" "Let it up," Nathan said, trying to regain control of the situation. Moments later, a building staff member arrived with a small package. Emma took it carefully, looking at the sender. "It's from Brian," she said, surprised. Nathan froze. What does he want now? Emma ignored the question and opened the package. Inside was a small photo album and a letter. She opened the album first, finding old pictures of herself, smiling next to Brian. Some showed her pregnant, holding her belly with a tired but happy smile. "This is me," Emma said, emotional. Nathan felt panic rising. "Emma, please, be careful with that." "Be careful?" "Nathan, this is my life. My story. Something you never shared with me." She started reading the letter out loud. "Emma, I know I've made many mistakes. I can't change the past, but I want you to know that I always believed you would be an amazing mother. Grace is lucky to have you. I hope these photos help fill in some gaps while you recover your memory. Please consider giving me another chance to be in your lives." Emma closed the letter, her hands trembling. "He seems sincere, Nathan." "He's manipulating you," Nathan replied, almost without thinking. "How do you know?" Emma asked, her tone more challenging than ever. Nathan hesitated. "Because he only reappeared when he knew you were safe. Before that, where was he? And where were you, Nathan?" Emma shot back, her voice low but sharp. In the days that followed, Emma began to investigate more about her past. With the help of the photos and fragments of memories that began to surface, she pieced together a partial picture of who she was before the accident. Nathan watched from a distance, struggling with the fear of losing her to Brian or to the memories that were finally returning. One night, Emma confronted him again. "Why did you never tell me about Brian?" Nathan sighed, sitting down at the kitchen table. "Because I thought it would be better for you." "Better for me?" "Nathan, you can't decide what's best for me. That decision is mine." He looked at her, his eyes filled with a pain he had never expressed before. "Emma, I was afraid." She seemed surprised by the confession. "Afraid? Of what?" "That you would see me as the man who ruined your life." Silence fell between them. Emma froze, trying to understand what he was saying. "What are you saying?" Nathan took a deep breath, knowing there was no turning back. "I was driving the car that hit you, Emma." The revelation hung in the air like thunder. Emma stared at him, speechless, as tears filled her eyes. "You?" "It was an accident. I was distracted, but that doesn't matter. I caused this. I caused your pain, your memory loss. I caused everything." Emma gripped the wheels of her chair, as if she needed something to hold on to. "And you lied to me all this time?" "I was trying to make things right." "Make things right?" "Nathan, you destroyed the only thing I had, my trust in you." Nathan tried to approach her, but she raised her hand, asking for space. "Leave. Emma, please." "I said leave." Her voice was a scream that echoed through the apartment. Nathan, his eyes filled with tears, stepped back. He knew he had broken something that might never be repaired. That night, Emma stayed alone with Grace, holding her daughter as tears streamed down her face. She looked at the photo album, trying to reconcile the image of the person she was with the woman she now saw herself as, trapped in a wheelchair, not knowing whom to trust. Nathan, on the other hand, spent the night in a hotel, staring at the ceiling and wondering if he had done the right thing by confessing. He knew there was no going back, but the uncertainty about the future consumed him. The night in Nathan's apartment was silent, but laden with tension. Emma was in the room with Grace, rocking the baby while conflicting thoughts swirled in her mind. Nathan's words still echoed. "I caused this. I caused your pain, your memory loss. I caused everything." She looked at Grace, her eyes filled with tears. The innocent smile of her daughter was a cruel irony. How could something so pure come from such devastating chaos? She felt betrayed but also torn. Nathan had been by her side at every crucial moment. He had cared for her, for Grace, offering unconditional support. But the shadow of the accident and the lie hung over everything. The next morning, Emma made a decision. When Nathan returned to the apartment, she would demand clear answers and the whole truth, without excuses or half-truths. But before that, she would need to deal with another matter. There was still Brian. The photos and his letter were on the living room table. Emma knew he was an important piece of the puzzle of her life. If there was anything that could help her understand who she was before the accident, it was him. But at the same time, there was something about him that didn't seem right. As she reflected, the intercom buzzed again. The doorman announced that Brian was in the lobby, asking to see her. She hesitated but finally said, "Let him up." A few minutes later, Brian appeared at the door. He seemed more put together this time, as if trying to make a good impression. "Emma," he said, smiling nervously, "thank you for seeing me." She let him in but remained cold. "I'm not seeing you because I trust you. I'm here because I want answers." Brian nodded, sitting on the couch while Emma positioned herself in front of him, adjusting her wheelchair with a controlled movement. "All right. Ask whatever you want." She started with the basics. "Why did you leave when you found out I was pregnant?" Brian looked uncomfortable but answered, "I wasn't ready. I thought I couldn't be a good father. I had debts, problems. Honestly, I was a coward." "And now, what's changed?" Emma asked, her gaze firm. "When I heard about the accident, I regretted it. I realized I needed to make things right." Emma crossed her arms, thoughtful. "And you think just showing up here with pictures will erase what you did?" Brian lowered his head, but before he could respond, the door opened. Nathan entered, stopping when he saw the two of them. His face immediately hardened. "What's he doing here?" "He's answering the questions you didn't have the courage to," Emma shot back, her voice hard. Nathan approached, ignoring Brian. "Emma, he's not trustworthy. He's here just because he knows you're vulnerable." Brian stood up, irritated. "And you? Are you going to act like a saint? Should we talk about how you lied to her, Nathan?" Nathan clenched his fists but controlled himself. "I'm trying to protect her." "Are you trying to protect her or yourself?" Brian retorted. Emma intervened before things escalated. "Enough. I won't be pulled back and forth by the two of you." She looked at Nathan, her voice colder than he had ever heard. "You hid the truth from me from the start. You lied to me while I trusted you." Then she turned to Brian. "And you? You think you can just walk into my life like nothing happened? Like you're some kind of redeemed hero?" Both of them fell silent, unable to respond. "You both let me down. And now, I'll decide what to do about it." Emma decided she needed space. She asked Nathan and Brian to leave. Nathan tried to argue, but Emma was adamant. "Nathan, I need time. And you need to understand that." He nodded, resigned. "I'll be here when you're ready." Alone with Grace, Emma reflected on everything that had happened. She looked at her daughter, feeling an unexpected strength grow within her. No matter who was by her side, her priority was Grace and the future they would build together. However, Emma knew she couldn't run from the truth. She needed to face the past to move forward. The next day, Emma asked Nathan to return. He arrived, anxious but hopeful. "Emma, thank you for letting me come back." She nodded, serious. "I still have questions, Nathan. Questions you need to answer." Nathan sat in front of her, determined to be completely honest this time. "Ask whatever you want." Emma took a deep breath. "Why did you decide to take care of me after the accident?" He answered without hesitation. "Guilt. At first, it was just that. I felt responsible for what happened. And after that..." Nathan looked at her, his eyes softening. "After that, I realized it wasn't just guilt. I started to care. About you. About Grace. You became part of my life." Emma lowered her eyes, processing his words. "Do you understand how much this hurts me? How betrayed I feel? I understand. And I regret it deeply. But I want you to know that everything I did was because I care about you." Emma was silent for a long moment before finally speaking. "I don't know if I can trust you again." Nathan nodded, accepting the response with a heavy heart. "I will work to earn your trust back, Emma. I don't expect it to happen overnight, but I won't give up on you." In the months that followed, Emma began to rebuild her life. She joined support groups for people with disabilities, found a therapist to help her deal with the lost memories, and slowly began to forgive Nathan. As for Brian, he disappeared again, making it clear his intentions were never genuine. Nathan remained by Emma and Grace's side, but respectfully, allowing Emma to set the boundaries. He dedicated himself to proving his worth, not just with words but with actions. Finally, one day, while they were walking with Grace in a park, Emma looked at Nathan and smiled. "Do you still feel guilty?" Nathan looked at her, surprised by the question. "Not like before. I think now I feel gratitude. Gratitude. For you. For Grace. For giving me a chance to be a better person." Emma was silent for a moment before taking his hand. "Maybe we can start over." Nathan squeezed her hand, a sincere smile lighting up his face. "I would love that." And so, with time, Emma and Nathan found a path together, building a new life not based on the past but on the future. 6 months had passed since the day Emma told Nathan they could maybe start over. Time had brought profound changes for both of them, but especially for her. Emma had begun to rediscover herself, rebuilding her identity and, for the first time in a long time, dreaming of the future. One night, while Nathan was in the office reviewing documents, Emma called him from the living room. She was sitting in her wheelchair, with Grace sleeping peacefully in the bassinet beside her. "Nathan, can I talk to you?" He dropped the papers immediately and came to her. "Of course. Is everything okay?" Emma smiled, though she was visibly nervous. "Everything is fine, yes. Actually, I've been thinking about something." Nathan sat on the couch in front of her, waiting attentively. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, adjusting her hands in her lap. "Before the accident, selling chocolates at the traffic light was the only way I could support myself. It wasn't much, but I liked doing it. Seeing people smile when they bought something sweet." Nathan nodded, remembering the stories Emma had told him about that difficult period in her life. "Yes, I remember that. Since Grace was born and you brought me here, I've been thinking, what if I could do more with that? I don't want her to grow up seeing me depend on others for everything." Nathan frowned. "What do you mean?" Emma looked up, determined. "I want to open a store." Nathan blinked, surprised. "A store?" "Yes. A candy store, chocolates, maybe even gifts. I want to create something that's mine, something that shows Grace that I am capable." Nathan was silent for a moment, absorbing what she was saying. Then, a smile lit up his face. "That's an amazing idea, Emma." She sighed in relief, though she was still hesitant. "Do you really think so?" "I do. And I want to help." "Nathan, I wasn't asking." He raised his hand, gently interrupting her. "I know you weren't asking. But that doesn't mean I don't want to be part of it." Emma smiled, emotional. "Thank you." In the days that followed, Nathan dove headfirst into the project. He researched ideal locations for the business, contacted architects to ensure the store would be accessible for Emma, and helped organize suppliers for the products. Emma, in turn, dedicated herself to creating the concept of the store. She chose the name Sweet Present, symbolizing both the sweets they would sell and the gift life had given her by allowing her to start over. After 2 months of planning and hard work, the store was ready. Located in a charming commercial neighborhood in Chicago, Sweet Present was cozy and welcoming. The shelves were filled with homemade chocolates made by Emma, as well as imported chocolates, small gifts, and personalized cards. On opening day, Emma was nervous. She wore a light blue dress that matched her eyes and was positioned behind the counter, watching as Nathan finished organizing the last details. "Is everything ready?" she asked, trying to control her anxiety. Nathan smiled at her, holding Grace in his arms. "Everything is perfect." The door was opened for the first customers, and Emma felt overwhelmed by a mix of emotion and relief. Several neighborhood people came in, curious about the new store. Among them were parents with young children, young people looking for gifts, and even elderly people drawn by the smell of chocolate in the air. Staff from the hospital where Emma had been treated also came to celebrate the opening, including Dr. Alan Mitchell, the doctor who had overseen her recovery. Emma greeted everyone with a smile, explaining the products and sharing her enthusiasm. Her wheelchair was not an obstacle. She had organized the store so she could move freely and reach everything she needed. As the months went by, Sweet Present became a success. Emma created an exclusive line of personalized chocolates for special occasions, even with lovely fortune phrases in the packaging, and it quickly gained popularity. The store began to receive orders for weddings, birthdays, and corporate events, and Emma soon realized she would need to hire staff to keep up with demand. Nathan, although still busy with his work, made sure to help whenever he could. He took care of the administrative side, allowing Emma to focus on what she did best, creating sweets and interacting with customers. "You're amazing at this," he said one night, watching Emma decorate a cake for a special order. "Not really," she replied with a modest smile. "I disagree. You turned an idea into something amazing. And you're just getting started." With the store's profits, Emma was able to set up a significant savings account for Grace. She didn't need to, as Nathan never let them lack for anything, but she made a point of contributing financially, enrolling her in a high-quality daycare, buying clothes and toys without worrying about asking him for money, though he never questioned any request from her, as money had never been an issue for the wealthy executive. Additionally, Emma felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time: independence. Although Nathan was by her side, she knew the store was the result of her own work and dedication. One afternoon, while playing with Grace and watching customers come in and out of the store, Emma smiled to herself. "I did it." That same day, Nathan entered the store, holding a bouquet of flowers. He walked over to Emma and handed her the bouquet with a smile. "What's this?" she asked, surprised. "A little celebration. Today marks 1 year since you said you wanted to open this store." Emma looked at him, emotional. "A year? It doesn't feel like it." "It does to me. I saw how hard you worked, how much you fought for this. You deserve to celebrate." She smiled, taking his hand. "I wouldn't have done it without you, Nathan." "No. You did it because you're determined. I was just here to support you." Emma looked at Grace, who was playing with a small teddy bear. "I think I finally feel at peace. I have Grace, I have the store. And I have you." Nathan knelt beside her, holding her hands. "And you have all my love, Emma. Always." She smiled, emotional, and pulled him into a hug. Over time, Sweet Present expanded, opening branches in other neighborhoods of Chicago. Emma became a respected businesswoman, but never stopped being the devoted mother Grace needed. Nathan remained by her side, as a partner, a business associate, and a companion. Together, they found not only redemption but also a love that strengthened them through all adversities. Emma, now surrounded by success, dignity, and love, knew that despite the hardships, she had achieved something even more valuable: confidence in herself and belief in true love.